to a breakout session on green and sustainable maritime sector. Ladies and gentlemen, to enrich your experience, we have a galaxy of eminent speakers from India and overseas, and we really hope that we have an engaging discussion and you benefit from the discourse over the next 1.5 hours. To take the session forward, I invite Mr. Sanjay Mehta, Chairman Deen Dayal Port Trust. Sir, the floor is yours.
First of all, I would like to greet and welcome all the distinguished panelists. For setting up the context, we have a small film and a presentation. I would like to start with the film regarding green and sustainable maritime sector. Please show the film, Nirja. It's about 3-minute film.
Yeah. Well, now I'm in.
Which has, for thousands of years, been the source of building our culture and business. Ocean has made our worlds look so little. In this quest, the entire world is turning its eyes towards sustainable and green energy. And in this, many ports across the globe, such as Port of Antwerp, Port of Zeebrugge, Belgium, DP World in UAE, Port of Jebel Ali, and Port of Singapore are rising as one of the biggest green ports in the world. Our Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, has envisioned to make our country green and sustainable for future generations. And to fulfill his vision, the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways has included a session on green and sustainable maritime sector, which is about green initiatives, reducing pollution, renewable energy use and generation, green shipping, etc. in the maritime sector. Now, our India will remain nowhere behind the world. And India is expanding its horizons with some green ports like Cochin Port is commissioning 1.85 megawatts of rooftop and floating PV-based solar power generation capacity. In Adani Port and SEZ, installation of 19 megawatts renewable energy has happened, which has helped to avoid 15,320 tons of CO2 equivalent in 2020. Visakhapatnam Port has commissioned 10 megawatts solar power project. Deen Dayal Port has completed setting up of 20 megawatts wind power between 2018 and 2020. Deen Dayal, VO Chidambaram Port and Kamarajar ports have recently signed deals for wind energy. These ports are rising as the biggest green ports of India, which have the potential to become world's biggest green ports. With the target of increasing share of renewable energy at ports to a significant level, India's maritime sector has a 10-year vision, Maritime India Vision 2030. Here, increasing usage of renewable energy, reducing air emissions and improving green cover, optimizing water usage, improving solid waste management, dredging material recycling and adapting centralized monitoring system are the vision. In this 10 years vision, the share of renewable energy is targeted to be increased to 60% at ports. Let's dive in the ocean of opportunities and collaborate with the Government of India to invest in greener, healthier and more sustainable maritime ecosystem.
Thank you very much for the film. Once again, I would like to welcome you all to the session. It's an important session regarding green and sustainable ports, green and sustainable maritime sector. I would like to emphasize on the importance of green and sustainable maritime sector for the development of the world as a whole, keeping in view the need of future generations as well as for keeping a more cohabitable world for all the species, for all the humankind as well as all the species. I would mostly like to focus on the green ports perspective of India in particular, with the perspective of major ports, which are under the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways. Though I would also like to emphasize that private ports and private terminals in India, like Adani Ports and DP World, are equally contributing to the green cause and green and sustainable maritime sector. I have a small presentation for you. Just please start the presentation. First slide, please. So this shows the current status of major ports and the private ports vis-a-vis international ports. The current status as such regarding renewable energy, we have very limited capacity. We have less than 10% of renewable energy as on today. However, we can take an example of DPT regarding renewable energy. DPT, that is Deen Dayal Port Trust Kandla. Deen Dayal Port Trust Kandla is having 20 megawatt of wind energy. So actually our port is a surplus in green energy. We are consuming 10 megawatt of electricity, and in that place we are producing 20 megawatt of green energy, that is wind energy. That is one of the examples. Other ports are also trying to imitate and emulate that. Green belt in our ports is less than 10%, is in less than 10% area. we have very high dependency on diesel. If we compare it with the international ports, Rotterdam has 100% electricity power cranes. Singapore is having cleaner marine fuel with LNG bunkering vessels. Antwerp also is having LNG bunkering for barges and coastal vessels. Some private ports in India have done quite a good work to make our ports and maritime sector green and sustainable. Two ports, I must take the names. One is Adani, another is DP World. The example of Adani World is here. They have renewable energy to the tune of 19 megawatts. They have replaced their conventional lights with efficient LED lights. They have electrified their RTGs. They have provided shore power to their tugs, and they have replaced the conventional cargo transport also with the conveyor belt mechanized system of things. Next, please. The ministry has prepared a Maritime India Vision. Maritime India Vision 2030 as a vision to take India to the heights of maritime sector. Green and sustainable ports. It has been a major thrust. It has got a major thrust in Maritime India Vision 2030. A complete new chapter has been devoted to this, and they have decided so many things to get it done by 2030. Actually, way forward has been divided into 6 verticals. The 6 verticals are, the first vertical is to increase usage of renewable energy. That I have already talked regarding that. So our current status as far as renewable energy is concerned, we have 118 megawatt of solar power capacity currently. We are willing to match it to international benchmark, that is more than 60% of renewable energy. The second vertical is reduce air emission and improve green cover. To reduce air emission, certain points, certain activities are being thought of, they are being proposed, they have been proposed in the Maritime India Vision. They are LNG bunkering, we are thinking on a big bay to go for LNG bunkering. Providing ship-to-shore electricity is another big aspect that we are planning to go ahead. Multi-fuel strategy for vehicles, which are plying in the port. We are going for that. Then very important for bulk ports, the ports which are handling coal and all that, just emission management program. That is again an important program that is being taken care through Maritime India Vision 2030. The third vertical is optimize water usage. We have to optimize our water usage through atomizers, mist cannons, water conservation measures. I didn't talk about improving green cover. Actually, improving green cover has been a very important part for our ports. We are going ahead with that. Next vertical is to improve solid waste management and other waste management. The concept being followed is the concept of waste to wealth. The next vertical is dredging material recycling. For dredging material recycling, we are preparing a new dredging policy. The new dredging policy is in the offing. It had certain provisions to recycle the dredging material, to convert waste into wealth. The sixth final vertical is centralized monitoring system. Centralized monitoring system is very important to track HSE, that is health, safety and environment parameters. So we would be tracking HSEs. You would be tracking HSEs for environmental parameters. Next. As per Maritime India Vision, these are the key performance indicators which has been decided and which our ports have to follow, have to perform and to follow by 2030. Percentage share of renewable energy right now is less than 10%. We have to go ahead by more than 6. Next, please. Next, please. Yes. So renewable percentage share of renewable energy, we are targeting for more than 60% by 2030. Area under green belt also, we are targeting for 20% of the total area under green belt. CO2 emission, again, we are targeting for 30% reduction. Consumption reduction is also 20%. Electrification of port equipment. We are also going ahead for 50% of our port equipments to be electrified by 2030. Next, please. Apart from MIV 2030, we have a national action plan to promote green shipping. Next. So this, next please. This plan is also in implementation, and a lot of action has already been taken regarding this. The most important is Swachh Sagar portal. It is to facilitate port reception facilities. That is already underway. Single-use plastic ban, one of the most important hot topics these days. We have a portal for facilitating replacement of single-use plastics. We have to move towards ratification of ballast water convention also. So we are going ahead with that. Efforts are being made to make shore power supply a reality for Indian ports. National action plan looks to three aspects. One is policy aspect, another is infrastructure part of it, and the third is technology solutions for the same. Policy frameworks, policy instruments relates to regulatory mechanisms. Some of the regulatory mechanisms like just-in-time arrival, port-based incentives for low-emission ships. These are the policy instruments which will help the national plan to promote green shipping. Infrastructure development, green ports, whatever infrastructure we develop taking in consideration the environmental factors, making our ports green ports. Technology has a great part to play for green shipping, like zero low emission solution for shipping, hybrid power, shore power supply, alternate fuels. They can come handy to make our ports green and sustainable. Next, please. Next, please. These are few projects which are already under implementation. Solar projects. Vizag port, that is Visakhapatnam port, has already commenced 10 megawatt solar project. New Mangalore port has also commissioned 4 megawatt solar project. Greening initiatives. Deen Dayal port has taken a lot of greening initiatives in port areas, as well as the areas, Gandhidham areas, the township areas. A lot of efforts has been made by Deen Dayal port, Kandla. Wind energy, Deen Dayal port has taken a lead in wind energy also. It has set up 20 megawatt wind power projects and three projects, three ports, Deen Dayal, Chidambaram port and Kamraja port. They have gone ahead and recently they have signed deals for production of more wind energy. In LNG bunkering, Cochin port has LNG bunkering facilities. Next. These are few of the points for collaboration and investments. These are the projects we can invite investments in all these verticals: solar farms, wind farms, shore power, LNG bunkering is a huge area. All the ports can partner in LNG bunkering is if investors and collaborators come forward. Tidal and wave energy is a new area, is being explored also. Is being explored in Gujarat, West Bengal and Tamil Nadu. So investors may come and partner in these areas. Dredging, in the new dredging policy also we are thinking of PPP in capital dredging and reuse of dredging materials. So collaboration may come in that also. So these are the points: electrical vehicles, electrification, pollution control, all these require collaboration and investment. Next, please. Thank you. This was a brief regarding green and sustainable maritime sector. A brief what has been thought of in Maritime India Vision 2030. What is our thinking? What the port sector is thinking regarding that. So it was just a small glimpse regarding that. Now I would like to invite CMD CSL, Mr. Nair, to give his address, please. Mr. Nair.
Thanks, Mr. Mehta, and welcome, fellow panelists. First of all, let me place on record deep appreciation that we are all here today. Difficult times, but then there's the best forum, there's the best method we can actually team up and discuss future possibilities. Mr. Mehta has already touched upon on the port side what could be done and what are we looking at. On the shipping vessel side, I think we are all clear that the Kyoto Protocol has given us very clear insights about where the shipping industry must move. We are clear that this is not about one nation. One nation's vessels could be polluting another country. So this is a global aspect we are talking about. We are also clear from the Paris COP, and as a responsible citizen amongst the Committee of Nations, India is very clearly committed to the UNDP goals. So I think the roadmap is fairly well set, well clear. And the marine industry, the maritime industry is searching for its own share of methods to look at in a larger role if you talk about decarbonization. So decarbonization could come in, we talk about zero emissions. Somewhere in the world, we also started talking about positive aspects like not just finishing off the carbon, but then also trying to be carbon positive, let's put it that way. And the landscape is evolving. There would also be various downstream spaces. So when we are talking about zero carbon fuels, various fuels, we are today talking about ammonia, probably methanol, blended fuels where there's more of hydrogen in the fuel. We are talking about hydrogen fuel cells. LNG, we have handled LNG for long, and LNG how we propagate more LNG in our vessels. And on the downstream side, these are going to open up more opportunities, bunkering, storage, conversion of the new fuels. I would stop at this because we have a very eminent panel here, 7 speakers. I think we will discuss around EV. We'll talk about batteries, storage systems. We'll also look at the alternate fuels, as I said, ammonia, methanol, hydrogen. My only request would be as we move forward, because of the paucity of time, let's limit our discussions to near coastal vessels or near coastal and urban mobility areas and port and harbor operations, rather than really talking about the high sea operations at this stage. Thanks a lot, and I think we should move forward, and I request Mr. Mehta to invite the first speaker.
Thank you. I would like now to invite Mr. Jane Swan, Chairman and Managing Director, Solar Energy Corporation of India. He has developed and implemented large-scale renewable energy projects across India. He is an expert in bidding and installation of solar projects, wind projects, and hybrid projects. He would be talking on making ports green and sustainable by increasing generation, usage, and sale of renewable energy, solar, wind, and hybrid. Mr. Jain Swain, please.
Good morning, Mr. Mehta, and good afternoon to all the panelists. I just briefly speaking, Solar Energy Corporation has been created as basically as a market maker, a demand aggregator, and an intermediate procurer for the majority of the RE projects that is to be set up in India. I have a presentation. Can I get the presentation, or I will have to talk as it is? Next, please. So, then I'll just very briefly touch upon this. National target by 2022, solar is 100 gigawatt, wind 60 gigawatt, others is 50 gigawatt. It is about 175 gigawatt. By 2030, solar is 300, wind 140, and others are 10. So commissioned so far about 91 gigawatts it has come, and capacity under implementation is about 53. And we are confident that we should be able to achieve 175 by 2022 or going forward. So the strategy that the Government of India has done for promotion of RE, they wanted to reduce the regulatory risk. They have put a standard bidding guideline. There is a RE policy. There is the implementation risk because land is a problem. Of course, this may not be very pertinent to the maritime sector, just for the information. So solar parks and associated infrastructure is being set up under the aegis of the government. And there is a major issue is the payment risk because the buying entities are the distribution companies who have a lot of problems in making payments. So SECI, as the implementing agency, is taking the payment risk. Next, please. And these are the SECI achievement. We have so far auctioned about 31 gigawatts or 31,000 megawatts in solar, and wind about 10 gigawatts. The tariffs we have brought down because our auctions are very transparent auctions. They come down from 5.5 to 2 in last 4 years. In solar and in wind, it has come down again from it was in a feed-in tariff regime from about 4.5 to 5 to it has come down to 2.41. So next, please. Now, right now, the movement is towards the hybrid projects because the buying entities want power throughout the day. Solar comes in the daytime and wind comes in the morning and the evening. So, so we have started, tried, experimented with hybrid projects, which is the solar and wind. And of late, we have gone into storage, a certain level of storage. So we have basically pioneered with 3 tenders. One is a solar, wind based hybrid projects. Then we have also had renewable energy for peak hours. That means you supply renewable energy, the solar or wind, and for the peak hours, which is determined in our country as in the morning and the evening, then you have to guarantee the supply of power. That we have done. And we have also, as a trial basis, 400 megawatt, we have done a hybrid power that is round the clock. That means 85% PLF, where the first year tariff is 290 and the levelized tariff is 315, and very attractive tariff it has come. Next, please. How do we India? How do we green the ports? So we had signed a MOU with Indian Ports Association in 2015 to set up 150 megawatt solar projects, and with that we had so far about 14 megawatts of projects are commissioned with SECI's consultancy, and 5 megawatt is under implementation. So this our contribution to this thing. Of course, we do keep advising the Indian ports on these issues. Next, please. These are some of the project photographs where we are actively involved. Next, please. The major constraint, as we see, is like ports. Their main business is basically handling of cargo and remaining as a facilitator for the incoming and outgoing cargo. So since solar takes a lot of land, space availability is a major issue. Some of the ports like Paradip, we could not find good land to set up solar. So space availability is a constraint. Of course, we can do rooftops wherever. Recently, I think Mumbai Port Trust, we are setting up rooftops through our schemes. Second constraint is that not all ports have wind. Yes, the Gujarat ports and the Tamil Nadu ports, especially the southern, the Tuticorin, do have good wind, and they can set up wind turbines without really affecting the port operations. But not every port has the availability of wind. Then another issue that has come up, I think our friends in the ports will confirm that what we have experienced is once the berths have been privatized, there is a reduction in loads. So what the ports had initially planned for captive loads of solar, that is not coming forward. How do we go forward? This is our view. One is the ports can source renewable energy power from SECI. Currently, SECI has a PPA of 35 gigawatts, and the port's demand is much less than that. 35 gigawatts of solar, wind, and hybrid. So it can be easily sourced from that, but there is they have to pay the access charges and the cross subsidy charges. The Ministry of Power has promised that they will bring down the cross subsidy charges over the year. So this can be one way the ports can actually say that they are consuming 100% green electricity. Second is that the ports should, because they are they do round the clock operations, so increase preference for the hybrid power. Third is they should mandate the berth operator to use green power. That means, as Mr. Mehta has already told in the beginning, that the ports have a roadmap to increase the percentage of percent of electricity in the total energy consumption within the ports. So once that is done, I think the greening will improve significantly. And as it has been already, this is our suggestion, it has been already taken by the Indian ports, which is a certain percentage of green power to be utilized for the entire port operations. If that is also put in, then things will improve. Next, please. The increased long-term opportunity, increased use of electricity port operations. So if this is done, the greening will automatically happen because electricity is a very, very clean fuel, clean energy source. Second is increase the use of electrical vehicles. Right now, yes, electrical vehicles in the ports do typically use heavy vehicles, very heavy vehicles. So right now, this has not come. Whatever electrical vehicles is coming, it is coming in the small passenger segments, but there has been a movement to use in the buses and trucks, not in India, but outside. So it can be probably tried up. So once electrical vehicles start, the charging stations will be set up, and the port-based RE or the RE source from elsewhere in the country, up-country, from the hinterland can be utilized. This will also spur the necessary charging support infrastructure. Cold storages, again, they present an excellent opportunity for use of green electricity. Then the third most important thing, it is coming, there is a lot of work going on elsewhere in the world, and here also India, the hydrogen mission has been announced, production and utilization of green ammonia. I see ports as a very ideally situated to start or facilitate production of green ammonia. Green ammonia can be utilized as I think it is being talked very highly as a maritime fuel. That means ammonia is produced from green hydrogen, which is again produced through electrolysis from sources, and then ammonia is taken into the ships. It is split into hydrogen, and hydrogen is used to fuel the ships. So this is an excellent opportunity. The ports can take advantage of it. The second is I see that many of the fertilizer plants are based on the ports because they import ammonia, and from there they import the other materials like potash and phosphorus and make complex fertilizers. So most of them are port based. So production of green ammonia, if the ports can share spaces for production of green ammonia, RE can be sourced from upcountry, and green hydrogen can be produced to have a green ammonia which will power the fertilizer industry, green the fertilizer industry, as well as green the maritime operation. Another important aspect we should look at is the desalination plants, for which RE being very cheap is a ideal option, because electricity is a major cost component of in the process of desalination of water, and ports do consume a lot of water, and some of the ports, at least I know in Tuticorin, they have a lot of problem accessing potable water, fresh water from the sources, because Tamil Nadu itself is water deficient. So this can be another aspect where a lot of RE power can be used and ports can get a green certification. Next, please. So whatever I have told earlier in green ammonia, I have just described in detail. So just the roadmap can be that RE powers can be sourced through SECI, or it can be from the RE projects set up within the ports wherever there are space is available. Then electrolysis of water, green ammonia is produced. After that, it can be utilized in various purposes, and it can be they say that it is the fuel of the future, not now, but in another 5-6 years hence. But our planning process also takes about 3 to 4 years. So I suggest that we can start planning for this. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks for the insights. We could have some discussions later during the Q&A session. May I now request Mr. Akshay Kumar Singh, the Managing Director and CEO of Petronet LNG Limited. We are all aware that Petronet LNG is a pure play LNG player, and we are fortunate to have here the Managing Director, the CEO and the MD with us here. Mr. Akshay Kumar Singh brings on the table a vast experience, more than 35 years in the Indian petrochemical space. He's a mechanical engineer and been with the petroleum sector throughout, and been working in GAIL earlier, and today these days heading Petronet LNG. So over to you, and we would like to hear from you. Thank you.
Thanks, Nair Saab. This distinguished and eminent panelist participant connected on virtual platform on today's topic for discussion on green and sustainable maritime sector. Good afternoon to everybody. I am very pleased to join all of you at this afternoon. First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways for taking such a big initiative for arranging this mega event and also giving us the opportunity to share our views. I have a small presentation. May I request to upload this presentation, please? Next. Today I am going to touch upon brief introduction about our organizations and need of the LNG bunkering and our contribution. This new initiatives on the gassing up and cooling down operation for LNG ship, and a very innovative pilot project on conversion of fishing boat engine. Next, please. This Petronet was incorporated on 2nd of April 1998. It has a 50% equity from 4 Maharatna company at BPCL, GAIL, IOCL and ONGC. We have 2 state-of-art LNG regasification terminal in operations. The Haze, which was commissioned in 2004 in Gujarat in Gulf of Cambay. It has a capacity of 17.5 million ton per annum of LNG regasifications, and it is almost operating at the full capacity. We have another terminal at Kochi, which was commissioned in 2013, and it has a capacity of 5 million ton per annum. As we know that PLL meets almost 40% of total gas requirement of our country, and also we import 75 to 85% of LNG, whatever is consumed in our country. Our terminal has successfully received more than 2,750 LNG ships of all sizes. Next, please. Now, coming on the topic of LNG bunkering, the effect of increasing a stricter air emission legislation implemented through international maritime organizations, MARPOL, and other local air quality controls, together with favorable economics, is driving the replacement of conventional bunker fuel to LNG. Based on average number of 2020 LNG costing west coast of India, the cost is 40% lower than marine diesel oil and 30% lower than heavy fuel oil. After implementation of this 0.5% sulfur limit, there is substantial increase in the number of ship operators shifting towards the use of LNG. As per various industry sources, present fuel market for the marine use across the globe is in the range of 250 to 300 million ton per annum. And the current consumption of LNG in this shipping sector is only less than 1%. However, as per the DNVGL, considering IMO plan of decarbonization, even with slow initial transition to LNG by 2050, the LNG share is expected to increase to 40% as a bunker fuel in the market. Next, please. As per industry sources, LNG bunker demand is estimated to grow up to 9 million ton by 2025 and even 30 million ton by 2030. LNG fuel fleet is expected to grow to 8,000 ships by 2030 from currently existing, plus some already ordered ship for the conversion, that is around 550 number. In 2015, PLL carried out its first LNG bunkering services at Kochi, which was first of the Southeast Asia. Proximity to major international shipping route makes it a convenient choice for LNG fuel ship. Every year, more than 36,000 ships pass close to Indian coast. As of now, Kochi terminal offers terminal to ship bunkering. We are also planning to facilitate modification to cater a smaller LNG ship at Kochi for venturing in ship-to-ship bunkering at outer harbor. Truck-to-ship bunkering at nearby port is also being considered. We are working towards positioning India as an LNG bunkering hub. Next, please. Considering the business need and optimization of resources, PLL has active plans to venture into some specialized services of the ship, that is we call it GUCD, that gassing up and cooling down services. And this services is to displace the inert gas from ship's cargo tanks and subsequent cooling down to cryogenic temperature to make them ready for loading LNG. New vessels on maiden voyage vessels after maintenance or long haul ups need such services prior to loading of LNG. In 2015, PLL carried out first GUCD operations of Southeast Asia. 5 international LNG ships have been already taken service from PLL Kochi terminal. Further facility modifications are planned to ensure faster turnaround of ships. We have recently formed a new subsidiary for the LNG bunkering, maritime services, and GeoCD operations, which will be mainly focused at the Kochi, our terminal. Presenting a basket of marine services to international ships is desired by international ships if we wish to establish Indian port as bunkering hub. Next, please. Kerala has a significant marine fishery sector with more than 40,000 active fishing craft, including 6,000 motorized mechanical boats, consuming about 2 lakh kiloliter diesel and 1 lakh kiloliter of kerosene per year. Considering environment benefit, ELL decided to fund and execute an innovative pilot project for retrofit of a fishing boat's diesel engine. Boat was provided by Central Institute of Fishery Technology, Kerala. I am happy to share that work has been completed in February 2021 and boat is under trial and testing. In fact, today we have filled the LNG in that boat. This is a quite large size boat which has a engine capacity of 320 HP, and we have already fitted the LNG tank of 450 liter, and this is converted to consume 60% LNG and 40% diesel. So this is first of its kind in India that this boat has been retrofitted, and we feel that when we showcase to the local fishermen community with the support of Kerala government, this will increase this conversion of the fishing boat, particularly in the southern part of India. As I shared that this LNG fuel fishing boat will be again the first of its type in India, as was first LNG fuel bus launched by ELL in November 2016, and that was also in Kerala. With the continued a strong partnership between the government and all stakeholders, I am quite confident that we can take the maritime industry to new heights in the coming years. On this note, I wish everyone a good day with a lot of fruitful discussions and presentation. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thanks for giving an insight of what PLL is trying to do in the space, especially in the maritime sector. We'll come back to you during the Q&A session. And I request Mr. Mehta to invite the next speaker.
Thank you. Now I would like to invite Mr. Ingvar M. Mathisen, Port Director, CEO of Port of Oslo. He has worked in international logistics and has played commercial roles in shipping companies. He has headed Port of Norway, Port of Bodo in Norway as well, and he is now working on the vision of developing Port of Oslo as the world's most efficient and environment-friendly city near the port. He would be talking on green and sustainable Port of Oslo perspective. Mr. Ingvar Mathisen, please.
Distinguished panelists, I'm honored to speak at MIS 2021 by giving the Port of Oslo's perspective on a green and sustainable port. May I have my presentation, please? Yes. On the slide, you can see virtually all of the port, and it may help to explain our vision. I was just cited. Port of Oslo, the world's most effective and environmentally friendly city near port. And as you see, the cargo port in front, and then the city, the capital of Norway, just behind it. And it creates some extra challenges. Next, please. Since the time is short, I will take you some very highlights of Port of Oslo, and then I will come into the environmental and climate goals for the entire city of Oslo, and determine how the Port of Oslo can do our share. And then I briefly touch on what Port of Oslo does to fulfill these action plans. Next, please. Oslo is proud to be among the leading maritime capitals of the world within various segments. So although Port of Oslo is small, we are also part of that cluster, and that also we try to take a great advantage of. Next, please. By numbers, Norway is the largest multi-purpose cargo port, leading container and passenger gateway, but still small. I won't even touch on those numbers. So next, please. However, Oslo is one of the world's most ambitious cities in the area of environment and climate. And the entire city, have 95% cut as the goal of CO2. And for Port of Oslo is 85%. And that's also mean sailing in the last nautical mile into the quay walls. Next, please. So then I will touch base on the environmental and climate goals for the entire city of Oslo. Next, please. So here you can see the cuts achieved by 2020, and then 2030, the emissions that have to be cut. And it's quite extensive, but in order to do that, we had to figure out what is actually, how we're going to manage this. So next, please. And then we have established in the city of Oslo the climate budget. It is part of an integrated part of the municipal budget. And there is all planned and implemented CO2 reduction measures are in there, the same way as we'll do with finances. There is also identify who's responsible for the measures, when it should be implemented, at what cost. And the various municipal agencies and stakeholders are responsible for their measures. And a status report 3 times a year. Next, please. The climate budget has caught positive attention in many places around the world. Here is an example from New York. This is a part of the reason why I'm speaking here. We would like to share what and how we are working with you, and I hope to learn from you as well. Next, please. And I come to the action plan. This was developed to close cooperation with through political parties, Port of Oslo, customers, and so on and so on. And there we have identified 17 measures and instruments that could be, that should be utilized to reach our goal. And then the measures are converted into the previous mentioned climate budget. Next, please. So here you see a picture showing the reduction. And as the passenger port, as you see, has more the blue dotted lines. And then the cargo port is various kind of vessels going into the cargo port. Next, please. So here is how the action plan is built up. Here we have the entire emissions of CO2 for city of Oslo. And then it's identified that Port of Oslo have 4% or 55,000 tons of CO2. And then we have figure out what segments and land activity and so on. And this is important that we have identified that 15 vessels that go in regular traffic to Oslo, and the land activity alone will cut the CO2 emissions by 64%. So we start where we can get the most cost benefit. Next, please. Yeah, to show you just more how it's broken down by segments. And then also you have the different CO2, NOx, SOx, and particulate matters. So again, this is very important then to see where should we put in our efforts first and get the most benefit from. Next, please. And as well as identify in what mode of operation does the most emissions happen. Again, to target the actions more accurately. Next, please. And now we're talking about what Port of Oslo does to fulfill the action plans. I will just briefly touch on that based on time, but hopefully I can share with some of you afterwards if need be. Next, please. Yeah, we have just finished a project on exploring how to achieve our environmental goals. Now we know what to do and how much it is estimated to cost. So I won't go through all the various phases listed below, but I want to state the framework of our work. So next, please. So the framework is that we're going to cut this CO2 by 5% within 2030, 100% by 2050, and in a strategy plan we should also increase within 2030 by 50%. And I might add, we also going to cut the area of the port when the city development have completed in half. So that's why the efficiency had to be top notch in order to achieve that. Next, please. So Port of Oslo have been operating fossil-free since 2019. So Port of Oslo is an active landlord port, so we don't have much operations ourselves. We maintain and do the buildings, the key walls, and so on. But we have to also do our part. So therefore, most of our vehicles are electric. And then we just received one of the first electric full-size trucks in Norway. Remaining heavy machinery running on HVO 100. And next, please. And with a picture of our port working boat, the Pelican 2, one of the world's first fully electric vessels of its kind. This was a short version of Port of Oslo's perspective on green and sustainable ports. We want to exchange ideas and methods to reduce negative environmental impact with other ports worldwide. In India, we are working closely with the Norwegian Consul General in Mumbai and Innovation Norway, India. So please make contact. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Mathisen, for your insight on Port of Oslo initiatives. One of the most important concepts which you have talked regarding climate budgeting is a unique concept. I think should be followed by many countries now. Now I would like to invite Mr. Nair to invite the next speaker, please.
Thanks a lot. And the next speaker we have is Mr. Christian Sovik. Christian is a good friend of mine, and right now he is Senior Vice President with Corvus. And Corvus, as we are probably aware, is the largest marine battery and storage systems company in the world today. Christian is a technology guy. He has been almost 25 years, mostly on the electric side. And he has been with Ward Group, earlier Aker Group in Norway, for about 20 years in the industry. And being in the industry, he has worked very closely with Cochin Shipyard Limited and knows the Indian market quite well, because 2010 to 13, Ward set up the Indian operations and he was heading the Indian operations. Christian, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Madhu. And thank you very much for the invitation and the possibility to speak this event. I'm very delighted to be back in India, even though it's on a virtual method today. But anyway, this is working very fine, and it's very impressive to see the other presentators and how ambitious India is to become climate neutral and renewable, focus on renewable energy. As well, time is short, so I won't use too much time, but Corvus Energy is the market leader in maritime battery system today, and we focus primarily on the ocean space, which is maritime and port infrastructure. So yeah, so please, if you want to have more information after my presentation, you can contact me and or any of my colleagues in Corvus. So Corvus Energy is a fairly young company, but in the battery industry, we are fairly experienced. So founded in 2009 in Vancouver, BC. Today we have the headquarters in Norway, and we are approximately 125 employees. We are having a strong maritime DNA, and so as I said, we focus a lot on maritime area, and so the maritime DNA is an important thing for us in Corvus. We have a strong technical know-how about cells and battery technology, but also in the sector of where you can utilize and where you can benefit from the battery technology. We have a strong shareholder portfolio in Corvus. We have strong companies like the Norwegian Hydro, we have BW, we have Equinor and Shell, and as well as a local Canadian investor group. So we have strong owners in Corvus, which is important for us, and it's also kind of owners which is extremely industrial and interesting in the technology that Corvus represents. Yeah, next please. Today, over the last 10 years, we have now gained that we have 421 projects delivered. We have more than 3 million operating hours, and we have more than 320 megawatt hours installed batteries in the industry. So it's becoming a fair variety of type of projects, and for this car and passenger ferries, for these metro systems and so on, we have been delivering a lot in the last 3-4 years, as well for the car ferries in the port of Oslo. We have also provided batteries for those. We have a lot of cruise and yachts that we have provided batteries. Offshore tugs, workboats, fishing boats is also coming a lot in that area. And what we see now as well is this short sea shipping. When getting infrastructure and charging structure in the ports, you see the short sea shipping is also becoming a really hot area of hybridization as well as fully electrifying. And last but not least, the container ports. We have a lot of these projects. We have more than 142 projects where we have replaced diesel engines, large diesel engines with battery and smaller engines, and hybridizated port equipment and port cranes. Yeah, next please. So just briefly, I would say a little bit about the product portfolio that we have. Today we have 7 different battery types, so it's not such as one size fits all. We have, from the left side, we have high power batteries, which can handle extreme load demands. And on the other side, you have high energy batteries where you can go if you're going to sail on batteries for a longer period of time. And 3 weeks ago, we announced as well that we are entering into a cooperation with Toyota in Japan for developing fuel cells for the maritime sector. So Toyota is the world's biggest fuel cell provider, and together with Corvus, we will be their maritime arm on utilizing those fuel cell stacks that Toyota is producing. So that will become really interesting to combine the combination between battery and fuel cell going forward. Next, please. Just to give some figures of what are the savings potential in emissions and fuel, etc. And if you look at the typically car ferries, if you look at the metro as Cochin is doing, and if you look at that type of vessel where you can kind of benefit from a renewable energy source inshore or in port, you will of course have a tremendous benefit from comparing to the diesel-driven vessels that you have today. So for ferries, which is having a short recharging period and so on, and if you can get access to renewable energy inshore, it will be a extreme good business case. For the other nearshore vessels, if you have shuttle tankers, for instance, on the nearshore side, there is also great potential. If you have tugs, as was mentioned in the previous presentation, for harbor tugs and port tugs and docking tugs, etc., it's yeah, if you can go back to the previous slide. Yeah, thanks. For harbor tugs, we see that fully electric tugs is the way the market is going now, because they have a great period of time in port and can be recharged, and they only are working for a shorter period of time. So it's fully electric tugs is coming more and more. And as well for longer tugs that is working on longer stretches, longer distance, this is something which is coming really much now. But that's hybrid, hybrid side on tugs. So we see that more and more type of vessel is coming. The car ferries, and now we see that the high-speed ferries is also moving in that direction. There is more and more larger vessel becoming hybrid, which only a few years ago were not in discussion at all. Yeah, thank you. Next, please. Yeah, also as well as if you're going to go fully electric, you need some port infrastructure. And if you're going to go hybrid, it's also beneficial if you can charge batteries from shore. So what we have done is in terms of various ports, in terms of shore connection and shore to ship connections, there is a few types that I want to mention. And as well on the container cranes, what we have done there, I will also give you a slight insight on what we have done there. So next, please. In terms of, you can just jump to next, please. In terms of port cranes, we see the RTG, which is rubber tire cranes, gantry cranes. We see that there is a tremendous amount of those out in the harbors today, and though they have a large diesel engine in each crane, because they need to have power while they are lifting containers. When they are doing lifting heavy loads at high speed, that's when they need the power. The rest of the time, they are more or less idling. And as well, when you are lowering heavy load, you are regenerating power, or you're kind of generating power, which needs to be burnt off by resistors when you are using diesel engines. What we have seen is that if you replace that with a lot smaller engine and a small battery pack, you can have the peak power from the battery pack when you need it, and you can be idling and recharging batteries on the rest of the time. Next, please. If you go two back, yeah, there we are. So what we have seen, they've done some tests about what your traditional RTGs compared to a hybrid RTG. And you see, if you do tests, if the crane is standby for 30 minutes, you see, comparing with a large engine versus a hybrid RTG, you see you have 82% saving. And fuel saving means emission saving. That goes hand in hand. If you do a test, if you go a node load test, just lifting, moving, and lowering, you see that there's also a test that has been done, and it's a great potential saving in this. So we see this as coming more and more in many different ports around the world. Next, please. And in terms of shore to ship connection, then there is a few types which in Norway, around the coastline of Norway, there has been installed numbers of different type of shore connection solutions over the years. And the last years, you see that it's kind of standardization that is been the focus, and that's a great success. So my message is that if you're considering building up shore connection around the coastline of India, it's important that you decide on the standard solution, and I will recommend a few that is that what we have done in Norway, and it's really important that you build standards so any given vessel comes into port can connect and can varies between 50 and 60 hertz and all those technical challenges that you will face. Next, please. Yeah. So what we have been in Norway, they have now built this IEC 80005. Mark that standard, because this is something which they have now built, which is one version for low voltage up to 690 volt, and there's another one for high voltage solutions. So this is been a great success because the vessels are converting into this standard. New builds are being built according to this standard, and the harbors have been installed according to these standards. And what has been great with this is that the Norwegian government has as well been kind of incentivizing doing this. Ship owners that wants to convert their system into this, they are getting funding from the Norwegian government, and the ports that wants to install this are also getting funded. So over the last 3, 4, 5 years, it's been a numbers of vessels been able, and you see now Equinor came with a report now about how much on the vessel that they are chartering, how much they have now saved from previously been running diesel engines in port, now shifted over to shore connection. And of course, with the portion of hydropower we have in Norway, that's a great benefit for the environmental emissions. And in terms of India as well, with their ambitions of renewable power, is a great potential. So we will really recommend that you look into this standardization, and that will be a good kind of good for everyone that you follow a standard in this, and that can cover both 400, 440, 690, and 5060 hertz.
Christian, sorry to interrupt. I think we are getting on time here.
Okay. Yep. I will speed up. Sorry.
Can you rush through?
Yes, I will do that. Next, please. Yeah, for the metro and for the RoRo projects, it's a different type. If you're going to recharge your vessel in 5 minutes, this is a system that is will work, and it's also something that you need because that's a high power shore connection. It's a different system, but if you're interested, you can let us know, and we will inform what's available. Next, please. Yeah. Just briefly, the drivers you see now in global part, of course, IMO statements that they will go reduce their emissions within 2030 and within 2050. It's a great push. The rules on zero emissions in ports, as we saw from Oslo port, is also something which is a great push. Responsible governments about funding incentives, etc. It's something which is really important if you're going to reach your targets. You need to have some government incentives on that. And as well, there is several things. Battery economics is decreasing, so the battery cost is decreasing. The economics is increasing. Sorry for that. So of course, this request of greener experience, etc., is coming also as a great push. Next, please. So while I have been presenting now this 10 minutes, so perhaps I used a little bit more for the installed batteries we have in the industry now. we have, if you press next. Yeah, so with these 10 minutes, we have been saving 1,150 liters of diesel and 3 tons of CO2. So that's an indicator of the effort you have while installing maritime batteries or batteries in the maritime applications. With that, I would like to thank you. And if it's any more info needed, just feel free to contact me.
Thanks, Christian. Thanks for making the planet a bit more greener, and great company you have there. I think we'll get some time towards the end. Again, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I need to move on to the next speaker, and there's Mr. Sanjay Verma from Wärtsilä, but I have to point out that we're currently running 21 minutes beyond schedule, so I think let's try to stick on to the time. Sanjay Verma is with Wärtsilä Global. He operates out of Singapore and is Director Decarbonization. And Sanjay, again, has had a long association with India. I know him personally over the last, I think more than 25 years. And very experienced professional. Sanjay has been 14 years as a marine engineer, 4 years with Lloyd's as surveyor, and about 20 plus years with Wärtsilä and Global roles. And today he heads the decarbonization role. So Sanjay, over to you. And I know you have a loaded presentation, so try to see whether you can do around 10 minutes. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nair, and good afternoon, fellow speakers, ladies, gentlemen, and those who have logged in as an audience. First, let me thank also Vicky for this opportunity to speak at this summit. Mr. Mehta, you have set the scene very nicely, and I see that where my home country is heading to, which I'm very proud of. My topic is rather wide, and I must say that it will be an injustice if I cover it in 10 minutes. I have many slides, so I would leave it to the audience to be distributed, and maybe later if people have questions, they can get back to me. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I'll just touch upon Wärtsilä in very, very brief, and then the drivers for decarbonization, the pathway to decarbonization, the fuel options that the maritime industry has, and where we are with the terms of future fuels, and a case study, a brief case study of a hybrid tug, and then some discussions point or takeaways. Next, please. Wärtsilä is a 187-year-old company. It was established way back in 1834, and we work in two businesses of maritime and energy. And looking at the marine ecosystem, we believe that the data, efficient energy technologies, LNG, biofuels will take us to the IMO ambition of 2030, which is 40% reduction in carbon intensity. But to reach the 2050 ambition of 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emission, we would need green fuels and new advanced technologies for that future. The focus area for our research and development is towards fuel flexible engines, optimizing the energy systems, and develop new technologies to enable the smart marine ecosystem. Next. Next. Yes, when we talk about emission, basically decarbonization has become the key word or a fashion word or the buzzword today. But we should not forget the other type of air emissions, that is NOx, SOx, and particulate matter. These are local ambitions. They affect locally, and they affect the human health and loss of well-being, and also flora and fauna. Whereas GHG is a global emission. So whether you produce this GHG in India or you produce it in Timbuktu, it is going to have the same effect globally and in terms of global warming. For us, both are important, but sometimes when you optimize the one, the other one gets affected. So we have to have a balanced approach so that while we are tackling the greenhouse gas emission, we are also looking at the local emissions and the NOx and SOx and the particulate matters. Next. Yeah, this is the driver, which is represented in a way that by 2030 IMO ambition level, which is now will come in form of regulation, is to reduce the carbon intensity of the ships by 40% compared to 2008 levels, and in 2050 to reduce it by 50%, the greenhouse gas by 50%. So the carbon intensity, the CO2 reduction is to be in the range of 60 to 70% by 2050. Next. Next, please. Yeah. Apart from IMO, there is also these operational drivers which are coming, and you may have heard about Poseidon principles, and you may have heard about sea cargo charters. These are operational pressure which is on the industry to go in the right direction. Now, in order to get financing from these banks which are members of Poseidon principles, you need to follow a pathway of carbon reduction. That means the greener you are, the better you have the finances, or if you are not green, you may not get the finance to buy a ship even. And when you look at the sea cargo charter, it is again driving the industry towards the right direction, because if your ship is greener, they get charter. If your ship is not green, you may not get a charter and or land up with a bad charter rate. So in the end, your asset will be stranded. Next, please. The pathway. When we talk about the pathway, I would like to put it two perspectives. One is the vessel perspective, and other one is the fuel perspective. Vessel perspective means that we have to make the vessel more efficient, like the way it is. We have to optimize. Excuse me, could you please go back on the slide? Previous slide, previous, you're going ahead, previous. One up. Yeah, so the vessel perspective means you need to optimize the voyage. You need to optimize how you generate the energy on the ship. You need to optimize how you distribute the energy on the ship. How the vessel energy needs to go from point A to point B has to be optimized. Say how good is the design of the ship, how good the hull is, how good your hull paint is, how you are generating and distributing the energy. Diesel electric is the direction most ships are going, and in our opinion, as you go forward, you will find more and more ships, even ocean-going ships, becoming diesel electric, because that's the only way which is flexible, where you can integrate what you have today and what's coming tomorrow, be it fuel cell, be it batteries, be it other kind of energy sources like solar or rotor, like the other sources. It's flexible. You can add those kind of sources, or you can redistribute your energy balance. So that's the vessel perspective. When going on the fuel perspective, we feel that the dual fuel engines are the right engines at this moment, because that can take you on the liquid fuel pathway or the gaseous fuel pathway. When we talk about gaseous fuel pathway, we see that LNG is here as a clean fuel, and it is going to be, it's called the transition fuel, but this transition is going to last for next 20, 30 years. And then you can easily switch from LNG to bio LNG. And in future, which is made from green energy, a synthetic methane, which is synthetic LNG. Whereas if the liquid pathway is today you can use diesel to biodiesel to synthetic diesel or any bioliquid, that is in future you can convert these to whether it is methanol or it is ethanol or any kind of liquid that you're going to be liquid fuel that's going to be used. So today the right choice, because these assets are going to operate for 25-30 years, it's the right choice is to go for an engine which is flexible in going either pathway, because the pathway is not yet clear. Next, please. Next slide, please. Next. So when we look at what is the pathway of the fuel, as I said, it's fossil LNG today, tomorrow bio LNG, next is synthetic LNG, or from the biodiesel to synthetic diesel. Next. Next, please. Next and next. One more. Yeah. And then we have these three green fuels. When we talk about fuels, green fuels, that means fuels which are made from hydrogen. So green hydrogen or hydrogen and ammonia, and then green methanol, where methanol is made for carbon neutral, which can be blended with other liquid. Next. But we have to look at the properties of these fuels. And when we are looking at fuel properties, what is more important than we are comparing this future fuels options, and we have to be logical in our approach. We are not just looking at one aspect of it. We have to look at various aspects of these fuels to find that what is most suited for the shipping industry. Next. Like when we look at these different fuels, and you can see that LNG is at minus 162 degrees, whereas liquid hydrogen, you have to store it at minus 253 degrees Celsius. Methanol, again, it is a good fuel as far as the storage is concerned, but then look at the heating value of this fuel. So that means your endurance on that vessel. Look at the flammability of hydrogen versus methane. You see the hydrogen is flammable with a range of 4 to 75%. So the danger of carrying this fuel. So you have to look at all these pictures, all these things to understand which is the right fuel for the future or for the shipping. And again, when I say shipping, we have to divide ocean going ships to harbor ships to short sea shipping, and you would have the fuel for tomorrow is not going to be one fuel as it is today, diesel or heavy fuel. It is going to be a very different fuel that you would see in different regions, different type of shipping. Next. So here is just an example to say, for the same volume of LNG, you can go for 14 days, but for the same volume of hydrogen, you can only go for 5.3 days. And ammonia and methanol come somewhere in between. Next. But we are developing on all the four fuels as engine manufacturers. We already have our LNG engines which are running. Our first engines were introduced in 1987, but for the marine industry since 2003, we have more than 35 million running hours of experience and more than 4,000 engines in operations around the world. Methanol, we have already converted a ship from diesel to methanol way back in 2015. It finished 5 years of operation already. For ammonia, we have already done the combustion testing. The real testing has started last month. We already have a project where we are committed to supply the ammonia engine within next year, within 2022. We have also done, next slide, please. We have also blended hydrogen, as you can, next slide. As you can see, we have already blended hydrogen with natural gas up to 30% and ran on our dual fuel engines. So it's an existing product if you want to mix hydrogen with natural gas. So this has already been done way back in 2015, and now we are going progressively increasing the share of hydrogen into natural gas to go to 100% hydrogen engine. Next. This is the testing lab in Vasa in Finland, where we are testing our engines on LPG, methanol, and ammonia. So these real engine testings have already started to happen on these engines. Of course, depending on the business needs and the business case tomorrow, then we will be developing that particular engine faster than the other. Next. This is the example of the vessel I told you, which is running on methanol since 2015. Next. This is a project of ammonia tanker with ammonia engines. Next. This is another project where we are working on zero emission energy distribution at sea. So here the ammonia will be produced at sea with clean energy and stored and bunkered on the passing vessel. Next. And so when we are looking at a decarbonization formula for shipping, there is a ship perspective and there is an ecosystem perspective. When we look at the ship perspective, then we are looking at alternate fuels, we are looking at electrification, and we are looking at efficiency. So these three things we are going to be doing on the ship. But when we look at the ecosystem where the port is also involved, then we are looking at the fleet efficiency of those ships, how the ships are being routed, just-in-time arrival, which is you see the ships running fast just to reach the port in time and then waiting at the time. So just-in-time arrival, logistic efficiency at the port. You are as efficient, and when the ship has to wait for containers to come in, then that means it's not efficient anymore. Then we have to look at the port electrification. Next. And
Mr. Verma, you'll have to rush it through a bit. I know you have something to cover. Just try your best.
Sure, thanks. And I heard, see, the grid is getting greener, and we have to do all. I mean, our previous speakers have spoken about what all can be done on the shore about this. The only thing I did not agree with earlier speakers is that you need to have your own power production in the port. Ports are generally located in the congested cities. They are always very, very highly dense cities. As long as the grid is green, you need to make the grid green and not generate everything, all the power in the port for the port usage. It is not a captive. No port will have that kind of land available to set up solar plants. They cannot set up an ammonia plant in middle of a port, you know. So you have to be practical in your approach. You have to make the grid green. Even the grid is not green today. You can use that power to electrify your port, because that itself will bring down the emission and take the efficiency up, not just single decimal percentage, but in multiple percentage of efficiency. Next. This is just a case study which was earlier also highlighted by co-presenter from Christian. Just go next. Next, I would skip these just to come on to the benefits. Yeah, as you can see here, you can reduce your fuel consumption close to 60%. I mean, it is not as small, and it is based on the real figures from real port, and you can reduce it. And if you reduce it by 40 to 60%, that means you have reduced your emission by 40 to 60%. Next. So it has the benefit of lower installed power and lower energy consumption, lower operating costs, lower emission, and it doesn't have to be subsidized by the government. It pays by itself. But I would come with a rider. Next, go next. And Christian already talked about different kind of charging. These are some wireless charging which has been in operation long enough already, and hybrid has been, it's not nothing new. It has been in operation since 2014. And I must thank Christian for all his references, because I saw at least 70–80% references was with Wärtsilä. So thank you, Christian. Next. And this is also existing product for the just-in-time arrival. And just by doing that, this was just a calculation we had done for Port of Singapore. You can see the amount, 1 million tons. We are not talking about single digits. We are talking about 1 million tons of CO2 can be saved. Okay. Next. So just key takeaways, I would say there is no single fuel, future fuel. It's a whole variety, and again, suiting the different kind of shipping sector. Investing in fuel flexibility is the right way forward. And for port decarbonization, electrification will play an important role. Cold ironing, that is supplying power to the ships, electrical power to the ships, and not letting ships produce their energy. Charging infrastructure, very, very rightly said, it needs to be standardized with international standards. Electric cranes, trucks, lifts, mooring boats, pilot boats, ferries, hybrid tugs, these are the need of the hour, and that's how you can use of data and port to promote just-in-time arrival. Transparency in port services, these are the kind of things needed to make the ports greener. Policies in chartering and evaluation of tenders is most important. I've seen that, for any hybrid or electric tug, if your tender procedure is not redefined, nobody will come forward to bid with a tug, because today the tug operator or owner of the tug is putting all the higher capex, but the benefits are being taken, because the fuel is being provided by the port, so the benefit is not going to the person who is putting in the capital. So these policies need to be amended, and early adopters need to be rewarded and non-compliance to be penalized. Government policies to be aligned with the new tomorrow. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Verma. That's you're bringing in a large aspect over there. Very important. Our only problem would be time on this, but then I think let's see whether we can discuss a little bit later. Thanks for the detailed insight. I now move on to the next speaker from Japan, Mr. Tomoaki Ichida. Ichida-san comes from E5 Lab, which is promoted by the Japanese MOL, Mitsuyo SK Lines. He has got global exposure, being the representative of MOL in Thailand and London. And the concept of electric vessels, and the most important part, and which he's probably going to touch upon here, would be today E5 Labs is going to work on the first zero-emission electric tanker, which they are getting ready for March 22, which would be the world's first fully electric operated zero-emission fuel bunkering vessel in the Tokyo Bay. So over to you, Ichida-san, and please move forward.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great honor to be here. I'm Tomoaki Ichida, Mitsuyo SK Tokyo. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Next, please. And next, please. Next, please. Yeah. Before starting my presentation, I would show you the very famous Japanese art called Fujin Daijinzu. One is the god of thunder. The other one is god of the wind. We Japanese people respect the god of nature from the ancient times and have been living together with them. It is a common challenge for the people in the world how to tackle with climate change. I believe it's the right time to utilize renewable energy in shipping for future generation. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah, now I will introduce our E5 Labo. Next, please. Yeah, E5 Labo was established 1.5 years ago as a joint venture of the 4 Japanese companies, MOL and Mitsubishi Corporation, and Asahi Tanker, which is one of the group company of Mitsui O.S.K., and Exeno Yamamizu, Japanese shipbroker, in order to promote electrification and digitalization in shipping. Next, please. Here's our philosophy. The purpose of our company is to make shipping industry sustainable by collaboration with the latest technology, including electrification and digitalization. Then we would like to create new social infrastructure to contribute to the public welfare. This is the core value of the E5 Labo. Next, please. Here is our master plan for future. Our mission is to keep our planet green and clean, and to make seafarers safe and happy by electrification and digitalization. Next, please. Now, I would like to explain the Japanese domestic market briefly. Next, please. Here's a map of Japan. Okay, and then the seaborne trade covers about 45% of the total domestic demand in Japan. Next, please. Next, please. As far as commercial vessels is concerned, over 7,000 vessels are running in a Japanese domestic market, which includes the commercial cargo ships and the ferries. Shipping is very important for the Japanese people. However, the domestic shipping industry is facing critical risks these days. There are 3 risks. One is environmental issues. Second is decline of the working population. The third one is digitalization. Next, please. Yeah, next, please. Yeah, we are facing a severe shortage of Japanese seafarers. Today, average age of a Japanese seafarer is 55 years old, and it is yeah. And so this is the forecast for the average of seafarers in 10 years. It will decline at 35% in 10 years time. Next, please. Another issue is aging vessels. Today, 5,000 vessels have reached over 15 years old. Normally, the life cycle of the vessel turns around for 25 years. Therefore, we suppose 70% of domestic vessels will be replaced within 10 years. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah, next, please. IMO decided to reduce GHG up to 50% by 2050 in comparison with its volume in 2008. It is a big challenge for the shipping industry. We have to find a solution to comply with the IMO requirement. Next, please. Yeah, so please go ahead. Yeah. The VE5 shows the answer. We will sort out with 5 elements shown here: electrification, evolution, efficiency, economy, and environment. So we name our project as E5 from these 5 elements. Next, please. And next, please. Yeah. I can say that the risks are the chances. Now it's time to challenge the game with the 3 keywords: zero emission, safety, and autonomy. Next, please. Maybe some of the people say that they can better operate with a battery-like car. Answer is yes. Next, please. Yes, next, please. So now I introduce our EV tanker project. Next, please. This is a picture of a pure EV tanker, which will be delivered first quarter 2022. She will be the first EV tanker in the world, 100% driven by electricity. She will be deployed in the Tokyo Bay and engaged in the short voyages every day. She's designed to run for 12 to 13 hours a day with a battery only. Next, please. She is equipped with various remarkable systems as shown on the slide. Next, please. Today I skipped the movie, but you can watch our promotion movie through the YouTube. Maybe you can check it later. So we also touch upon the hydrogen as a potential marine fuel in future. Next, please. We expect the propulsion with the electric and the hydrogen encouraged to push forward for the usage of renewable energy. Next, please. This is the image of an ecosystem in shipping. Now the Japanese government decided to increase the portion of renewable energy towards 2050. And there is a chance to utilize hydrogen as a marine fuel. Next, please. Now we are making the design of a hybrid vessel. We are thinking to take 3 steps in change of the propulsion system. In the first phase, we combine diesel generator with our batteries, then followed by the ammonia and hydrogen fuel cell in order to achieve zero emission in the second and third phase. Next, please. So challenge to the future. Next, please. As a first case of the hybrid vessel, we are working for building a tugboat with a hybrid engine, battery, and hydrogen, and a small generator. Next, please. This is the tugboat, and this boat is designed and developed by the E5, and also Tokyo Kisen, which is a very famous tug operator in Tokyo. The vessel will be delivered in the second half of 2022. Next, please. Our future. So before closing my presentation, I will show you a movie of our future. So please start the movie.
Too many days in the darkness, without a glimpse of the light. Running tired and broken and scared, but I swear I'll never give up the fight. I see you broken and beat, head pulled down over your eyes. Every part of you wants to time enjoy it. With every star, we are born again. Open your heart, spend less time enjoy it.
Thank you very much. This movie was made for the expo in Osaka to be held in 2025. So that's all. Thank you very much for listening. And we hope that electric ribbon vessel will be available in India in near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ichida-san. Very, very interesting looks. The last movie looks really out of a sci-fi movie. And the next speaker would be from BCG, Mrs. Camille Egloff. May I request Mr. Mehta to introduce the speaker, please?
So the next and final speaker for this session would be Ms. Camille Egloff. Camille is the MD and senior partner at BCG, and she leads the BCG transportation and logistics sector globally. She has worked with BCG for the last 21 years, and she specializes in shipping, energy management, container business, and digital innovation. She would be talking regarding key global initiatives, future vision, and innovations in carbon neutrality, pollution control, green technology, innovations, global trends, so many things. So now I invite Ms. Camille Egloff, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman Mehta. And I would like to thank the Indian Maritime Summit for inviting me to speak today. It's been a great honor and a great pleasure to listen to the other presentations today, which are extremely insightful. And I think the ambition behind the decarbonization of shipping is something that at BCG we share and we are very passionate about. BCG is a company that is very active on the climate initiative, also together with the World Economic Forum. And I would like to bring today some of the views that we have also to share a bit of a global perspective on this. If you can move ahead, please, on the presentation. Yeah, please move ahead. All right, so I think we've heard a lot today, and probably everyone is aware of the urgency and the call for action. For sure, the climate change has an economic case for action. If you look at this page, whether you are on a 1.5 Paris ambition, or if you are in the more pessimistic current path on which we are today, with no action to be taken, the impact on the global GDP is important. Even in the Paris ambition of 1.5, we would contemplate a decrease in GDP by 8%. So there is no question around the case for action. I don't think we mentioned that so much today, but it's probably, you know, in everyone's mind, and I'm delighted more than anything that people are actually taking action, and the breadth of the panelists today show that this is a broad set of initiatives. If we move forward, please. I think it's important just to put things back into perspective. Overall transportation logistics represents 17% of total global emissions. This is what you see in the green bar in the middle of that chart. So it's not the industry that emits the most. However, I think it's still 17%, and within this, it's important always to remember that shipping actually produces 3% of GHG emissions. So we are really talking to an important contributor in that overall map of polluting industries. Now, if we move forward, I think I would like to share with you a very interesting piece of data. We run a survey and looked at almost 900 companies globally. We looked at everything that, and I'm speaking of transportation logistics companies, of course. Those almost 900 companies, we looked at what they are disclosing in terms of targets with regards to emissions. And we looked also at the level of targets that are set. And this is here the results of that survey. What we see is that in 70% of the cases, transportation logistics companies don't even speak about the GHG emissions and their targets. So 70% do not even mention this in their annual reports, in their official company publications and communications. Interesting enough, on the other side of the spectrum, you have 23% of companies that actually have targets, but when we double click and we look at those targets, you would be surprised to see that only 50% of those targets are actually meant to be effective, and therefore you still have a very big portion of companies that are not ambitious enough with regards to the target set. So I think that's a very interesting and telling piece of data that says that, we are all here talking about the right things, but out there, the world is big, and you still have 70% of transportation logistics companies that are actually not even talking about GHG emissions. And when they set target, they are not ambitious enough. So now that's a bit of a, more of a sanity check and a check to see whether, everyone is aware and we are all working in the right direction. Now, I don't want to remain on that kind of gloomy message, because I'm extremely optimistic actually on how transportation logistics companies are taking action, not only here around that panel, but also more globally. And I'm going to share some examples. Please move ahead. So I think one important element, and we spoke quite a bit about this today, it's a lot about the ecosystem. It's a lot about making sure that we all team up together. And when I say we, in a maritime forum, it's very much the teaming and the collaboration between what's going on at sea, what's happening in the ports, and then what's happening in the hinterland after the gate of the ports, with all the intermodal connection. I think for me, very important that this collaboration is seen in a very broad perspective, and of course, here today between the ports and the shipping players. Now, please move forward. There are three types of levels. I think we heard a lot today about the middle part, which is the clean fuels, the tech measures. For sure, those are the biggest drivers in terms of making sure that we act on GHG emissions. We said a bit less today about the efficiency of the operations, which short term, before we have the fuel of the futures, the most impactful short term is really about managing better the operations within the ports, managing better the operations on board of vessels to reduce as much as can be done with existing technology. And then I think the other one where we talked a bit less about today is all the innovative policy. And I think there was talks about how can you set up a standard to make sure that across India, for example, you have the same standard of a power plug to make sure that it's also convenient for customers, and there is a standard being set so that investments are synergetic. I think the regulatory bodies the state and the governments have a lot to do in terms of incentives, making sure that the right incentives are in place, but also that there is a number of penalties that are put in place for those that would not be complying with the regulatory constraints. Why it's important? Because I think we are talking a lot of collaboration between public and private players here. It cannot be solved only by public or only by private, but the good collaboration and the incentivization of progressive policies and policies and progressive investments to support green technology, for example, it's very important that states commit to that. The Indian state, of course, but beyond. Yeah. Let's move forward, please. So what I wanted, and we probably won't have the time to go into detail in this, but I wanted to convey just some very concrete examples about emerging technologies and alternative fuels that will have and will play a significant role in decarbonization. And I think when we look also into the carbon offsets, there are a couple of examples here about, voluntary commitments to use or remove carbon effects, but also make sure that there are ways to really incentivize the purchase, for example, of carbon credits or the purchase of compensation mechanism. In Europe, for example, there's a taxation of carbon that is very much in talk by maritime companies on how this is going to be one of the vehicles used going forward. So, it's a lot about efficiency, emerging technology, of course, imports, robotics, exhaust treatments, and digital has to play a big role. I won't come back to the alternative fuels, which I think have been discussed extensively today. But I share the view that was voiced that there is not one solution out there, at least not for now, and companies need to edge also the kind of choices they are making, not to be left aside. Now, I wanted also to bring 3 concrete examples. If you move forward, please. Can you please move forward the presentation? Yeah. I wanted to bring some international examples on best practices that I am observing in some of the international ports. I was very happy that in the introductory presentation, actually the examples that I bring resonate also with what you showed. I think the Oslo example was extremely inspiring today. But, it's not just Singapore who is very vocal about what they do, and I think they do a lot in terms of LNG bunkering. They communicate a lot, and I think that's important to make sure that the commitment, what gets measured, gets done, and the fact that the port of Singapore is communicating very actively on the sustainability report standards. I think that's very good. But it's not just Singapore. Rotterdam, the first fully electrically powered port today, with very strong initiatives, also with the back end of green tech ventures that are being hosted in the context of the Rotterdam ports to really incentivize and push innovation of green techs also beyond what they are already doing. And I think also what I like about the Rotterdam example is the fact that the green transportation is happening within the port, and then they have also very strong collaboration with the Dutch government for all the interland connection. Let's really not forget that a port is just a connector between sea and land, and therefore whatever a port can do is very limited compared to the emissions that happen at sea and then the emissions that happen in the back end in intermodal. And also the example of Antwerp in Belgium But I think from my experience of working with global port players and also maritime shipping companies, the dialogue is really today very intense on that collaboration between what port authorities can do and states, Ministry of Transportations can do, and how they can incentivize private companies to make the right investments. That's a dialogue that I'm having, with really a number of states today. It's very high on the agenda. Post-COVID, also the green financing, either private or public, is very much favoring green infrastructure. So I think it's a moment of opportunity. And I'm glad that you put that topic on top of the agenda of the Maritime India Summit, because this is so current and a dialogue that we at BCG have with many governments right now. And I would like just to close with a picture that was developed. If you go to the next page, please. This picture was developed by my Indian colleagues that actually work hand in hand with a number of Indian stakeholders on the carbon intensity of the Indian economy. And you can see the red bubble on top showing that today the emissions per capita in India are actually not that strong compared to many other countries. So the India economy is not very polluting in terms of carbon intensity. However, we all know that the growth agenda is extremely ambitious. I think the call for action is to make sure that that growth agenda is very much observed from a climate perspective, to make sure that there is also a roadmap with regards to decarbonization going hand in hand with that growth. And in there, the maritime economy and the ports and shipping companies at large have a big role to play. So that would be my conclusion remarks today. And I think we are up for questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks, Ms. Camille, for your insight on carbon neutrality and carbon issues. We have a question answer session now. I invite Mr. Madhu Jain to coordinate the question answer session and to coordinate the final session and to sum up.
Oh, thanks, dear speakers. It's been an extremely interesting session because the theme is also such, and we are all extremely well connected on this. I can see there are a few questions that's also coming from the viewers, which probably I don't think we'll have the full time here, but maybe there's a question for Sanjay Verma, which probably you can write and send it across on a mail to Fiki, so that we'll send it. We'll post it later. This question is because it's technical. It's come from Jay Dasgupta, ex-Indian Register of Shipping. What, in your opinion, is the best technology to prevent methane slip? So it's a technology question. I can see Camille Eglov has to leave. So before she leaves, let me also thank her for an excellent perspective. I think this entire panel probably got that a little bit of a rude shock also when she said that when 900 companies looked at globally, 70 didn't really care at this stage, or at least to put it formally. Thanks, Camille. I think we need to understand this and take things forward. Thanks a lot, and I know that you have to rush. There's also a question from Mr. Sitar Asu from Gandhidham, and this is for Mr. A.K. Singh, CMD LNG Petronet, but it's a generic question, like his thoughts are with the ports doing so well in the state of Gujarat, and you having investments and terminals in Gujarat. How can you leverage your terminals into the port operations? This is a question. Again, I know that it's a little bit difficult to answer straight away, but if a sentence or two can be mailed up, we'll send this across to the right person. I have a question also for Mr. A.K. Singh, because you talked about LNG bunkering, and there's a general feel that this could be big for India, because Singapore, Korea on the east, they're actually propping this up. Then you have to cross Suez to get into some sort of a good LNG bunkering space, and with your terminal in Cochin, well connected, would we get our act together as a country? Can we get our act together, build the small vessels and actually do LNG bunkering, let's say 10, 15 kilometers out? How confident are we, and how, if confident, how soon can we see something of this sort?
Definitely, we are working for using the major bunkering hub at our Kochi terminal, as our utilization of Kochi terminal is quite low. Hardly we are operating at 25% capacity, and there is a lot of the scope to maximize the capacity utilizations, and bunkering could be one of the major area of increase of utilizations, and we are very seriously working on that. How fast we can do it in the 10 to 15 kilometer inside the sea, or even through the shore to the ship also, looking for that ICTT terminal, if some ships can be uh, uh, fuel with the LNG. In fact, the issue is that whatever the ships are right now passing through the India near to the coast, hardly those ships are having the LNG propulsion. So definitely, it is going to take some time. We are told that only 150 ships in the world are having the LNG propelled, and it is going to gradually increase.
That's right.
So definitely we will catch up, and we will try to maximize the bunkering facility in the India, particularly at the Kochi.
Okay, okay. And there was a very interesting point which Mr. Sanjay Verma had raised, and this is really for Mr. Mehta to take into the Indian Ports Association, because he said that tendering procedures, we need to make sure that we are cognizant of the fact that we need to look at this, because if we don't look at the greening requirements and we go with our old-fashioned methods, probably we'll end up with, we will keep on talking and we may not be able to take the next steps. I thought that was a very important point. There was a question which I would like to have for Mr. Swain. We are talking about creating the newer solar or wind-based facilities for and to deliver the power. Like this, where would the investments come, or can you actually do something like what EESL is done on the energy efficiency side? Is this something like for the smaller operators, for the smaller people? Is there a method of a investment and then retrieving the money over a long term? Is this the model we are talking about? Mr. Swain?
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yeah, please.
Our model is something like ESL, in fact. So we become an intermediate procurer. So we procure from the RE developers, they set up the plant, and we downsell the same to the consumers. This is one. We can also think of a model where if the ports give the premises space, then in the OPEX model, or it is a 5-year after the transfer, 10 years after the various models can be worked out. But then only thing is, as per the current regulations, the cross subsidy charges will be leviable on the ports. So power will become a little more costlier than what is if it is a pure RE. So to get around that, ports have to invest about 26% in the equity to make it eligible as a captive power. So these three models are available. Either ports can wholly own it, or they can set up a captive where they own it minimum of 26%, or they procure from SECI, and we will make arrangements for investment on the other side. These are the three options that are available. You're muted.
The investment of 26% in the ports makes it eligible for them to avail of the renewable power at the best pricing. And
Yes.
then as both Mr. Verma had pointed out and Souvik brought out, because for sure we would need shore power, significant shore power in our ports. And if India can actually offer in our ports, we can actually offer renewable power as shore power. I think the whole equation is coming much better, isn't it? So this is something which I think through the Ministry of Shipping also we should take this strongly forward.
Just to add to that, if in case there is a good demand from the ports and it is added to the national agenda, then probably most of the RE plants will be the cheapest in Rajasthan and the wind probably in Tamil Nadu and Gujarat. So interstate transmission, there may be concessions also can be made available by MOP if there is a strong enough demand. But
Am I audible?
yes.
Yeah. Okay. No. That's for sure. I think we had some very interesting discussions. It's only paucity of time, and we need to probably wrap this up. But I should say 7 very, very well informed speakers. Mr. Swain brought in the angle of what we are trying to do from the Solar Energy Corporation of India. So Akshay Kumar Singh, I think it's very clear. He said like, and what better person than Mr. Akshay Kumar Singh to talk on this subject, because he said like 40% of all LNG in India and 70% of the imports being handled by Petronet LNG. I'm a passionate professional on LNG, and I feel India has, from a shipbuilding point of view, we missed the large LNG vessel perspective. Still, we are importing quite a lot. But on the smaller vessels, LNG bunkering, I'm sure India as a country should not miss this bus. And we are eminently positioned because of our geographical point. We are eminently positioned. What Mr. Swain also brought in, like powering, shore power, I think this is also something which India should never miss, because with our ports, the power available, the renewable power available, and standardized shore power systems, I think we should not let this go. So Matthiasen, as ever, because he comes from Oslo, one of the finest cities on the world, and very, very correctly, the entire concept of climate budgeting and that 4% of what the city of Oslo puts into the negative, into the city of Oslo, how he has broken it down. Very interesting insights. Christian Souvik, as ever, brought in very clearly what they can do on storage, the port operation side, the RTGs and the port side, and shore power supply. Sanjay Verma, big company, Wärtsilä, global front runner, and he was he voiced a little bit different, and rightly so, because he used the word that LNG, we talk about LNG as a transition fuel, but then he said this transition is not so short, it's 25, 30 years, this is what he said. And probably mixing biogas, synthetic LNG, how you hydrogenate fuel, he brought in those angles. Ichida-san, hats off to Japan, the kind of thought process they're driving, and that video. But very clearly, the Japanese are putting the money where they know it is, the pure EV tanker, fuel cell hydrogen boat. And what better person than to wrap up the session with Camille Egloff, because 2 very interesting things she brought in. One, she pointed out, look, guys, we're all talking big, but 900 companies which we have assessed, we are saying many are just talking at this stage. So it's only 23% who have set targets, and amongst those only about 15%. So you end up with around a 12% of the total lot, which is really talking effective targets. But what I felt was very interesting, and what probably me and Mehta should take back from this session back to the ministry is, she talked about 3 major things, which is for all of us. She talked about operational efficiencies. We all are aware of that. We are working on this. Then she talked about clean fuel and technology, which all the members here talked. But the last point was very interesting, policy initiatives. Then she talked about how we can bring in incentive structures and penal structures. I think whatever we talk, I think the ecosystem is getting ready. The technologies are getting ready. People are understanding this. But the government of the day, like what Oslo is trying to do, what Norway is trying to do, unless we are very clear that this is required for a country like India, and we push it with strong policy initiatives as incentives on one side, but for the people who wouldn't take the incentive, a little bit of push. I think this is what we should take out of this very interesting session. I would request, I know that Fiki has the presentations and Fiki would be uploading the presentations on the portal. Thanks a lot, all esteemed participants. We have exceeded by 45 minutes, but that's okay. I think that was expected a little bit because the kind of topic which we are handling is also very interesting. Thanks a lot from my side. I would request Mr. Mehta to say the final thanks to the members and thanks from my side.
Actually, Mr. Madhunar, you have summed up very well. It was a very informative and very thought-provoking session. A lot of things were told. We knew a lot, many new things, what is going on in Oslo, what is going on in Japan, how to imitate those things, how to follow those things. We have made so many plans for 2030. Whether our plans are synergetic with those plans, we have to see. Really enlightening, really heartwarming speeches from all our speakers. Thanks a lot to all of you. Thank you very much. Thanks.